Like, you don't have anything other than that. Yeah.
Many laps around the track because I don't know, because I'm going somewhere, I guess, but I don't know.
Because you're going somewhere, and aren't we all? Sorry, I don't know where that was going. But this is the Slouch. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. This is our nightly, it's weekly Tuesday nightly show where I, DJ Jdox, and my buddy DJ Static, I literally almost called myself DJ Static for a second. We get on and we have a real good time talking about heavy stuff, real heavy business. And I think because recently I had as a guest on Please Cancel Me, a young man who actually works at a real life radio station full of real life radio people and music, that it might be that after 11 p.m. Sort of the censorship gloves are off, and it just becomes more of a little...
Oh, I wasn't aware you knew that, but yeah,
let me get that thing on.
That's generally the case.
Isn't that how
they're a bit more lax? Yeah, I do remember that from freshman year.
That was always sort of in the back of my mind. I thought that might be the case, but I just played it safe.
Just, like, drop
no, you don't have all pretense.
Yeah.
No, we still have some standards, but I'm at least not going to be concerned about it anymore.
I'll still make faces at you when
say
the
a couple.
Can't see my face because it's radio.
So we have like 3 episodes of the Slouch that I've yet to upload, and because they are just huge blocks of audio, and
I still can't believe we lost like the best argument we ever had.
Oh boy, we missed the end half of that one show, and that was just such a tragedy.
So mad, and I said this at the start of the last show too.
Because it's been getting. I mean, I was crazy heated last time too. Like, it's been getting fierce in here with this heavy sociopolitical talk.
It also gets heated because we get exhausted, and then we don't want to lose the momentum, so we keep arguing, and so we're just like flopping around, arguing.
It becomes a big physical mess.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But I'm actually already exhausted today.
Oh, good.
So would you want to? Oh, if this is anyone's like first time listening, we just come on and we hang out and we play some Dream Pop in the background. And
we didn't get any mail, did we?
No, we've not gotten any mail yet. I mean, we were only getting mail previously from Kay, and he was writing along like 6 pages to whatever we were talking about, and
yeah. I can imagine that's quite taxing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to like try to keep up at that level for any more than a couple times. I've tried. I mean, you ever try like writing a journal or something and just be like, I'm going to catalog myself properly, but it like never really...
No, I've always been too lazy for that kind of thing.
Oh, the audio or the music was up kind of too loud. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm already I still have to get those up, but I want to go through and we don't take show notes about whatever we're talking about, so we just go and then I'm supposed to like listen back over it while I edit and then take notes of like where topics start at certain time frames so that I can put them up in the thumbnail for the video so that people can like not, if they're only interested in the nerdy garbage as opposed to the social
which we haven't
debates.
Had a lot of in the last couple episodes.
No, and I was actually like hoping we could just do more of that this week because I am pretty exhausted.
That's good.
I've been highly politicized consistently all semester, which is taxing psychologically. Yeah. And I just want to talk about some nerd garbage.
So, anything on your mind?
I watched the 2004 Michael Bay rebooted Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
That doesn't count as nerdy garbage.
Well,
it's
garbage.
It's garbage. I wouldn't call it nerdy garbage. Michael Bay, destroying the things you've loved since childhood, since 2000.
The most
2008?
You know, I have a lot of really good things to say. I have a lot of really good things to say about the concept of gritty reboots of children's cartoons.
I do not.
I have a lot of,
nothing but bad.
And it's a big cultural thing that I'm really behind. But generally, I mean, it was weird and bad, and like the creepiest. It was really creepy. I mean, their faces look all messed up, the turtles, because they're just really high res. They look kind of like faces.
They're literally right in the uncanny valley where they look human enough.
They're so deep.
They look human enough.
They're in the uncanny ravine.
But they have no noses, and the animation on their face is just off enough, combined with how the proportions of their face are just a little far enough.
Yeah, they have
really disconcerting.
Really squat, really wide faces, no nose. Their mouths and like eyes and like nostrils and stuff twitch like a normal person's does, but it's like very scary when they do.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so bad.
And they're all just like, they've all got like little things on them. Like it's not just the same turtles with the different weapons and the headbands and stuff. Like everyone has their little things. Like Raphael, the tough mean one with the size, he has like Oakley glasses and a bandana and like weird stuff.
Yeah.
Donatello is like, because Donatello does machines in the original theme song. He's just there with like covered in like solar panels and like weird like GoPro cameras and crap.
Night vision goggles.
Yeah, really. And he's got like these big cartoon nerd glasses. And
they're very exaggerated.
And Michelangelo has that what's it, Buka shell necklace? Like it's just this weird, like awful, like it's like the cartoon surfer dude necklace of those certain like small shells. Dude,
yeah.
Yeah. And they say Cowabunga and they had like a rocket powered skateboard. Oh, that actually wasn't the creepy thing though, was the way they looked. The creepy thing was that Michelangelo, towards the female character, April O'Neil, played by Megan Fox, because it's a Michael Bay movie, has like says stuff that is really profoundly date rapey.
Okay.
And
I just like stopped paying attention to.
And this turtle is coming on to Megan Fox very aggressively. And it's.
I thought it was amusing watching.
It's meant to be humorous because he's like the goofball character, but it's creepy.
What is the actor's name? The guy who played Job in Arrested Development.
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember his name.
Watching him try to play a young man. Yeah. Watching him try to play a young man was a little disturbing because he's like you look at him and you remember seeing him in things as well, and you're just like, he is way older than that.
And he plays like April O'Neil, the reporter's like boss or something. And so I was watching this movie not on its own. I was watching it through like a podcast group called The Comedy Button. They do movie commentary tracks to put over the movie, which makes it way more entertaining.
Riff tracks or like MST.
Exactly, very much like that.
Yeah.
And they were riffing on that Will Arnett's character, April's boss, was like in the original cartoon. He was this like, I mean, I don't know the connotations of the word foppish, but he's very like this weird foppish like persnickety dude, and he's just like, April, I have to go out and get my shirt pressed before the giant robots attack April, and I can't get all of this cheese out of the sewers. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Is an adjective that means affecting extreme elegance in dress and manner. A man who is constantly checking out his outfit in the mirror might be foppish.
Oh, he does wear
someone who loves dressing.
He does notably wear a fedora in a scene. They make a fedora joke in regards to this guy.
Don't judge us.
We got our friend DJT, who you never see because she doesn't DJ anymore. Yeah, I know.
Well, you never hear.
She was on Please Cancel Me for a little bit, but she just sat in. This last Saturday, and she just sat here and just like, just like, damn, turning this mic on.
Oh. I hear protesting.
What, did you turn the speakers on in the other room, you crazy people? Why don't you turn it off and do your homework for a change?
Oh, they're partying.
I shouldn't have let my hand.
Don't finish that sentence. Where were we?
Over what implication?
Did it do it?
I don't think it's on.
I think that she was. That wasn't
picked up by the other mics, but
it did. You did that so loud it got picked up by all of the other mics.
Good. We've got a tribble on the loose.
We sure do. Oh my god.
Star Trek.
What other stuff do we have to talk about?
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie is so bad.
It's okay. So I want to talk about the idea of rebooting, like the gritty reboot, and it's something that has been like talked about a whole lot because it is a big cultural thing. So we're not like breaking.
The problem is it's been done to death.
We're not breaking new ground by even talking about it or criticizing it or anything. But my idea about it is that it's fantastic and it's interesting and it's really cool. It reflects the media environment that as children, like the 80s kids, the 90s kids all grew up in. And that was like at a time when like children targeted media like just bloomed, not in a way that a flower blooms, but in a way that algae blooms in a lake and screws it up.
So you mean like the marketing ploys disguised as children's television?
Exactly. Those kicked off like crazy, and I'm trying to control the levels here real quick.
I don't think there's anything wrong with rebooting something or reimagining something, but the gritty reboot has been done to death, and very often they fall back on a very recognizable, irritating pattern that kind of relies on some sort of revenge story and an anti-hero and lots of dark colors and gravelly voices like that.
A lot of gravelly voices, a lot of explosions and particle effects.
Well, we're talking about 3D movies, yes.
Yeah. So, I like the idea of this a whole lot because being in like an extremely media-saturated environment that like 80s and 90s kids were growing up, unlike DJT, who hasn't watched a movie or a television show in her life.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah. Look, I don't know about childhood development or something, or about how kid brains work, but I'm not. That wasn't specifically a call out to you. I'm sorry. We're gonna watch Pacific Rim and Mad Max sometime this weekend. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I love those movies. All of the Mad Max movies. And Pacific Rim is amazing.
We're gonna get straight monster wasted.
I'm so upset that Pacific Rim 2 was put on hold.
Yeah, I don't know what was up. Okay, so
well, it's because Del Toro's in like a weird financial situation where here's how it kind of is. You know how he just made this movie Crimson Peak, I believe it's called?
Yeah. about the
he kind
Victorian
of
era people.
slowed down Pacific Rim 2 because of Crimson Peak, and the profits from Crimson Peak are intended to go towards Pacific Rim 2, which the profits from that are intended to go towards another Hellboy movie. So he's kind of got this weird like domino effect thing
Daisy
going
chaining
on.
Crimson Peak into Pacific Rim into Hellboy.
Yes.
That's chill.
How do you
Just okay. But what I like, what I'm all about is that like that our generation, the 80s and the 90s kids, really evidently in the media and in the social media and everything, are really pulling their childhoods with them, like dragging it along in a lot of ways. And this is not a new idea.
Well, hold on. Are you saying gritty reboots are good, or just reboots in general?
I'm saying gritty reboots are an expression of the fact that all of these properties are extremely like desired and marketable for people of our age. No, so
hold on. I'm being nitpicky here. Define gritty, because when I hear gritty reboot, I'm thinking like the Darkness video game.
What has been done, if we especially want to talk about the Michael Bay reboots, it has been gritty, but it has not been adult. These are still child marketed films for children.
Yes.
Fair?
Yes.
But it does have a much darker aesthetic, far more realistic. I think that it is wasted that it's still, in a sense, marketed towards children. If they kept the realism and like the seriousness and grimness of it, and then expanded that into really mature writing and mature themes, directed specifically for adults who like it's for the adults that grew up with this stuff, not just like for their children and then like with enough to keep the adults interested or something. My point is,
I see what you're getting at.
It's like, so an anecdote I use often is that people is Pokemon or something. Pokemon hasn't changed in 20 years. Yes. Because and everyone complains oh, Pokemon's not as good, or it's whatever, the new generations.
Ash will be a teenager forever.
Because Ash is supposed to be a teenager forever, because Pokemon is designed to be left behind. People like us, adults or college age people that grew up with Pokemon or something, are not meant to keep playing it, as we actually sometimes tend to do. Yeah. Which I at least do. And I know a lot of people are still into Pokemon, but it doesn't advance on any level of maturity, because of course it's not meant to. It's meant to be for the next 8-year-olds on their Game Boys, on the school bus. It's not for us. Mm-hmm. But for a certain amount of these properties, I think it would be really fascinating to make that for us, make Transformers a full adult thing, not with some teens or whatever that get caught up in the mix and they make fart jokes every once in a while. No, actually play Transformers Foxcatcher or something. I think maybe not. I think completely not without humor or lightness at all, but just excessively mature and complex in a way that's meant for.
I see what you're getting at, but I think removing the child aspect and wonder from these things is asking a bit much, because these are things very rooted in your childhood. You don't want I don't know, name a beloved franchise from when you were a kid. Because I can't think of one because I'm talking right now.
Danny Phantom.
So, you're suddenly new Danny Phantom, and he's super angsty and someone murdered his parents. And
well, not super angsty in that someone murdered his parents. I mean, there's gritty and there's realistic and there's serious, but I'm not talking about grimdark. I'm not meaning taking it down the rabbit hole of
That's generally though what I understand to be a gritty reboot.
Yeah.
What I think you're getting at is there's nothing wrong with rebooting an old franchise and modernizing it.
Taking it and modernizing it, and then also directing it towards a mature audience.
See, I don't think you just have to direct it at a mature audience. There's nothing wrong with bringing in
I'm not saying
a new generation of children into something that their parents enjoyed. And a good writer can do that. Look at how much we talked about Steven Universe before. That's a show written for kids that's got a ton of stuff adults can enjoy.
I'm not saying any of this should be, or that any of this would be better off or has to be. I'm just saying it would be really interesting. I have this consistent thing that I always talk about, that the second Kellogg's makes a brand deal with Smirnoff vodka, and they start marketing their breakfast cereals, their children's breakfast cereals, as flavored vodka.
Ew.
Our generation is going to snatch that up, even as the novelty, the novelty flavored vodkas are or something. But does this make sense that
yes
that
and no,
being so heavily saturated with media and having that a big part of our identity as children, to the point where you would become obsessed with breakfast cereal and stuff and toys and these cartoons and everything.
Then it would die after that. The way you have it right now is that you're talking about growing the media up with the people. And that's what Harry Potter was. I don't know if you guys were really into Harry Potter. I was so into Harry Potter. And we grew up with that, but the next my brother's age, he's so not into it. Him and all of his friends. Nobody's into it because it didn't age with them.
It grew up with us, except for the freaking Disney-ish ending. where everybody married everybody and named the kids after all the dead people.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but like if but it died because it grew with us, and then we stopped liking it after that. It died, and so that's why I think that they're still marketing to similar age groups because they can continue on. That age group doesn't.
There will always be children.
Yeah. But I'm just curious about if there was like a paradigm in which like the intellectual properties, like the skin sheds off of that, and like new weird fiction and universes and stuff. Like it's not remarketing like in the way that Nintendo remarkets Pokemon to the next generation of children. That like it's not continuously remarketing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Transformers or that stuff to like more children.
Of seeing that, just not in the way you're describing, and that it's not specifically marketed towards adults, but we're seeing a lot of stuff being produced for kids that really does tackle a lot of very mature material, and it does it with enough tact that it's appropriate for children still, but adults get a lot more out of it than children, I think.
What I've seen of it gets held back in certain ways because it still has to be child marketable.
Or the times when it's not, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's the real problem.
But it's like, it's in a lot of ways, these like reboots with like more of a 90s kid generation target demographic, like doesn't go far enough into the complexity that I'm looking for, I guess. I mean, if you took like a really complex, like,
what's something you'd like to see rebooted? And why?
I'm not sure, but like I don't think it's off the top of my head. I'd like to dig down. I would like,
because it sounds like you more just want to explore some of the stuff that these things would touch on, but never really go into.
I would like some of these properties to get cerebral, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's not marketable, though.
I mean, imagine if it was, though. That's just what I'm saying. Like
every show should be Rick and Morty.
I love that show.
Yeah.
I love that show.
We've talked about Rick and Morty on here for like a lot.
We've sung its praises.
Yes.
And talked about the season finale, which is really just
I love how they poked fun at the fans. That was great. And they literally did throw a pie in his face.
Yeah.
There was pizza pie in his
face.
Yes.
Spoiler alert for those of you guys who don't know.
Mr. They just pizza on his face.
Yep. Mr. Poopy Butthole just laughed at all of the viewers for the season being over. He just like, bye dudes. Like, you know.
Yep.
Oh, you'll have to wait until season 3 comes out. Maybe it'll be a year. Maybe it'll be longer than that. Who knows?
Yep.
There was a great screen cap I saw of like the Rick and Morty like official Facebook or something. Was just like, oh, it's like they were like, oh, it's Halloween. Or I don't know, just some like nonsense garbage social media post, and then somebody commented immediately like, make season 3, and literally they replied, yes, this was it. This was what we needed. Now we can make season 3.
So sassy.
I mean, they are comedy writers.
It's good though. It's good.
But I don't know. Like, yeah, I feel actually, in retrospect, from 5 minutes ago, I feel stupid talking about gritty reboots of children's stuff. I think it's weird. It's weird and funny and hilarious, and I will eat up like as much of it as I can because they rebooted, like they made Goosebumps into a movie. Actually, that is the one. Yeah. And we should go see it. Hammered.
Is it bad?
I don't know. It's got like
because it's got Jack Black in it. Not that I have anything against him, but
he
plays
a certain
type of movie that he's in.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
Thank you for saying it for me.
But he plays R.L. Stein, like the author, in which the Goosebumps books are like a canon thing, and then the Goosebumps books come to life, and R.L. Stein is just like, oh, all these monsters I wrote about are real now.
I saw the trailer, and I was kind of like, this is either going to be really bad or really good. There is no middle ground with a movie like this.
I think those started my dislike for scary things. I think that was the beginning of it. I don't like anything that's even remotely.
I tore through those books as a kid.
Me too. I remember when everyone
Big Brother's Big
Sister. I've always been into like Nightmare Fuel
Babysitter's Club.
Yeah.
I remember in elementary school when everybody was moving to a series of unfortunate events, I was like the Goosebumps loyalist. I never read Lemony Snicket. I was just all about Goosebumps all the time.
How much older are you than me? That like was not a thing.
2 years about.
Yeah.
I mean, Mrs. got a birthday up real soon.
Tomorrow. Yeah. No, but like.
Tomorrow, 1 hour from now.
Yeah.
Really? Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh boy.
I won't be a teenager anymore.
Oh boy, welcome to the 20s.
Woo,
it only gets worse from here.
No, but that book wasn't in for us. I guess everybody was reading The Uglies. Remember those?
I do not.
Yeah, that was a weird series. It was strange.
No, I was definitely a part of the like series of unfortunate events is a big deal, and there's going to be a Netflix series actually.
I have
There's
seen
always
that.
a Netflix series.
There always is. Yeah.
I am so like. And I know it can't last because everything goes bad eventually. There's no such thing as infinite good things.
But for
now, Netflix is doing so well.
Yeah.
But eventually they're going to make some screw ups. It's inevitable.
What I want to say, I thought about it. The ultimate, like, not, gritty, edgy, grimdark, but like a serious, like, cerebral, somewhat political movie, rebooted, or series of movies, Animorphs.
Oh God.
No.
Like a very serious.
No.
Oh, that is
very
a shameful
intense
chapter of my childhood.
Very intense spy thriller about these aliens. You don't know who's the alien or who's not. And then with elements of very surreal body horror and existential crisis from turning into animals.
I mean, there's quite a bit of body horror already in there.
It needs to be represented in extreme CG visuals.
You have such strange ideas for what people should do that flies in the face of so much common sense.
I'm not saying what anyone should do. I'm just saying
I would. That originally, thinking that was a good idea, and people dug it.
K.A. Applegate rocked Animorphs for like a lot of her career. She made buku bank off it. That's a very well-known series that everyone still adores to this day.
Now it's a party in here.
Now it is a party. We've got our fourth DJ coming onto the field. Say hello.
Hello.
What is your name, good sir?
Steve.
Steve. Did we determine? No, you have to lift it up, and it has to dangle in front of his cute beard.
But all right, you're talking about Animorphs.
And that's what brought him in.
That just made me think about two things, like the human centipede.
No.
Right. The human centipede mixed with the Metamorphosis by Kafka.
See, there you go. There's Animorphs.
That's like having
that's the running theme is Kafka's Metamorphosis.
Having beetle people like strapped mouth to anus.
No.
Okay.
That's what that made me think of us.
That's so bad.
I'm just gonna leave that out in the air. I can't build on that.
I feel deep revulsion.
Is there anything to build upon with that, or is it just
more beetle people?
I don't know. Well, we can't just leave dead air now. We're floundering here. Right. Come on, just keep either. Okay.
Okay, so like,
I mean,
basically,
you stopped this show dead in its tracks with that.
I didn't stop the show. I'm just saying, like, I tried to add something. Okay, because if at the point of body horror is kind of just like what kind of weird stuff can happen to your body, and it kind of creeps you out. And I think that kind of thing would just be really embodied by those two concepts.
Body horror embodied.
Yeah, just you have your body changing in all kind of weird ways. It's like, how did this happen? And that's why.
Sounds like puberty.
Yeah, exactly. But is there a difference?
I don't think
there's a difference.
I want Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, Animorphs.
No. That's one of those movies, though, if I probably went back and watched it again, it wouldn't be nearly as terrifying as it was when I first saw it.
You know what I was...
Like, I watched The Exorcist recently, and I was like, wow, this movie has not aged well at all. Like,
I think
it's terrible now.
The key horror to that was, like, a girl can be possessed by a demon and, like, do weird stuff.
No.
Now, it was well, that was striking for the time, but, like, after The Exorcist, now it's not... Now it's like, okay, what do you do with that? That's a very basic premise.
It hasn't aged well. Because, I mean, that's a story that's, like, as old as the Middle Ages. Like, so-and-so gets possessed and does terrible, terrible things. The reason it hasn't aged well is because it relied very heavily on certain special effects that look absolutely ridiculous now.
Some head spinning around, got some pea soup on it.
And the story was not, it was written like a lot of, horror movies are, which is kind of surface level. And it's really not super scary. The story itself is not super scary. So without the visual effects to stand on, it's kind of just there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, if you look at other horror writers like H.P. Lovecraft, or even
wasn't there a good H.P. Lovecraft movie out?
But that's the point. Like,
where's
the horror
Mountains of Madness?
The horror of Lovecraft is not like jump out of your skin kind of scary.
Like
it's sort of like this. It's this existential, really like sinking fear that Lovecraft tries to capture. So I think that if you want a good jump scare horror movie to be really like shocked and get that adrenaline rush from being scared, it can't be more than surface level, because you don't get that from the kind of deep fear that.
Yeah, and that's all, like, because there's a million movies about, like, so and so gets possessed by a demon, or a house is haunted, or blah blah blah, and the stories are usually pretty paper thin, and they're really just an excuse for, oh look, it's a scary thing happening over there, and oh look, somebody died, and oh, what's that? So it's really not much beyond that.
Yeah. What?
Sorry, you go. Yeah, I'm about to move on to something else.
All right. I was just going to say, but I guess that's what you want in a jump scare.
It is. There's nothing wrong with a jump scare, but...
What I've been wanting to see, represented maybe through, like, short films or something, was, oh gosh, I just had it.
It's gone forever.
Junji Ito's horror mangas. The Enigma of Amigara Fault.
Oh, man, that's some intense body horror right there.
Among others. There's a lot of... It's really good.
I have not personally read that, no.
You should read it because it's terrifying. And you should read it because you'll have nightmares for the rest of your life, maybe.
It's gross. It's body horror level gross. And there's a lot of it that is, like, existentially scary.
Quick, Jdox, pull up the last page and show it to them before they can look away.
Well, no, because that spoils it. Like, the build-up's important. That's got to be part of the... Yeah. That's the formula for the horror.
There really is a lot of building to, like, this kind of... It's one of those good horrors where they don't really explain why the scary thing is happening. And that's another thing about horror, is, like, a good horror has an element that can't be explained. Or is left just vague enough that there's an element of like you have to fill in the gaps yourself because people are way scary. Like people don't give themselves enough credit for being able to scare themselves.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like fear of the unknown fixed with whatever kind of weird, like unnatural kind of stuff is happening right in front of you, which is scary. But then not being able to explain it is like another level.
That's where the horror in Lovecraft comes from. And like literally explicitly in his characters, like they can't. It's such a severe dissonance between like what they're seeing and what they can rationalize that they literally go insane.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's a kind of the flip side to that is sometimes they can explain what's going on, but it's like they have these great worlds and these great lives with this kind of like fear that we don't even know, and we wouldn't be able to know whether or not we're completely crazy or not.
Yeah.
I haven't read much Lovecraft. You all looked at me just then. I haven't read any Lovecraft myself except for that one where the dude's in the cave and he goes crazy. And then he kills a dude because he thought it was like a big gorilla or something. Yeah. Cave gorilla.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I've read that, but I've read quite a few Lovecraft stories, so they're pretty cool.
Yeah. I do think, though, one of the most interesting things that really Lovecraftian style has really permeated very heavily into is horror video games. They love to lean on it, and it doesn't always go so well, but when it does, it's really great. It's really, really scary.
I want to send you guys, after the show, this video, this short film called Late Bloomer that is written in the style of H.P. Lovecraft and like a monologue of going insane, sort of in very much in that writing style, but it's like the story of a kid who jerks off in class or something.
Oh, God.
And it's really...
The story everyone
It's really crazy.
You guys have never done that?
No.
Oh.
I go to the bathroom like reasonable people in the middle of class.
Ew, how do you guys like casually just like need that? Why is that necessary?
Say what?
Well, ask your brother who's apparently going through the soft stage.
Well, now that I'm a real human being going to college, like I have time between classes, or like class gets out at 1 or something.
5 minutes between classes, dude.
Not like that.
It's
I
enough.
mean, like I have more control over my schedule as opposed to being locked in a building for 7 hours.
I guess that's fair. My high school setup was different than yours, but we had like a 15-minute break after our first 2 classes, and then an hour and a half off for like lunch, which was really stupid.
Well, you lived in the lap of luxury.
Yeah, we called it H block, and like all the seniors could leave, and we had our own like senior lounge and all that.
I mean, I got to leave senior year, but
we had an hour and a half to leave.
That was just because I worked so hard that I was able to take a shorter schedule senior year, so I could leave like 3 hours before most people. It was awesome. I beat all the traffic.
See, we were like locked into the high school, right? Like, or if you went out, you like couldn't get back in because it was so terrified of like
prison.
Of Columbining, yeah. But like, it was a big shock senior year to realize like, oh, we can just leave. Like, let's go get lunch.
Yeah.
Huh? How many people did you go to school with?
I don't know, 1,800, 2,000.
In your whole graduating class or the whole school?
Whole school.
Yeah, I think there were 1,600 in mine. We couldn't actually...
In your school?
In my school, yeah. We weren't allowed to leave, but there was just this one really awkward period of, like, I took the IB program, which has these weird exams in, like, May or April. So way before normal exams would happen, and we were able to come in and pretty much leave whenever we wanted during that exam period,
which was awesome.
Which was pretty sweet because there was about a week where I'd be in school for like 2 hours a day, and a couple of days didn't even show up, and I was just living the life, especially for high school senior. But
my school was very big. My graduating class in high school was 1,330 something. So graduation was awful because I am at the end of the alphabet.
Oh, yeah.
And it was literally an assembly line. Like, they actually had stations set up to take your graduation pictures while you waited in line to go on stage, have them shake your hand, shove a piece of paper in your hand, and, like, kick you off the stage.
Yeah. This is riveting conversation about high school.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely riveting.
So I have a good story, though, where I broke into my old high school as they were tearing it down. We had, like, a campus style of, like, 8 buildings, and then they built one big one to keep us all in one big old jail building.
Oh, good.
Full of bad funding. And what? All right. And so then when they were tearing the other one down, my friend Rachel and I broke into it one night, and I peed all over the floor. We went back to the attendance office where we worked, and we screwed up some ceiling tiles real bad, and we threw them on we just like really just smashed up a lot of this school that was like mid being torn down. And we walked into our one of the cool dudes, one of his offices, and like it was just a straight drop into a bunch of crumpled steel beams. That was cool.
Do you like exploring abandoned buildings?
I adore it.
Oh, it's so much fun.
We should find some abandoned buildings out here.
Oh, I'm sure there's some.
Walk around through. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Because it's full of ghosts. I mean, this would have been like recent ghosts. Yeah.
The ghost of that guy.
Well, I think most buildings are actually haunted.
I would say so.
I think like the vast majority of buildings.
Do you think anyone's died here in Ellis Hall at Juniata?
I mean, probably. I mean, like.
Yeah, someone who tried to do the Baker Challenge and died.
Yeah, imagine if that happened.
This guy, DJ Steve.
What's the Baker Challenge?
All right, so the Baker Challenge is basically you go into Baker.
If you don't know, Baker is our cafeteria thing here at Juniata. It has a bunch of different stations full of different kinds of food.
Yeah, so there's and it's all you can eat. Once you go in, you can eat any kind of food you want. You can keep going back for more. And there's about 9 stations. So there's a stir-fry station, a couple of just normal meal stations, which they have like, traditional meals. There's a fourth grill station, a sandwich line, salad and soup, cereal, pizza, and then random dessert items. So we counted 9 in total. So a couple of friends of mine and I go into Baker one night and say, okay, we're going to eat all 9 meals.
Oh, no.
And it was fine. We got through, like, about halfway through, it started to get painful. But eventually, like, through some encouragement and stuff and, really forcing it down, we got 9 meals, 8. And then we left to go die.
You're a true hero.
And by die, I mean take a 2-hour unintentional nap because there's actually nothing else we can do.
I mean,
and that's how Jambleton Jamberhams died in 1985 here in Juniata. We have his big creepy portrait hung up on the wall downstairs to commemorate his crazy gluttony and the fact that his stomach popped open and he died like Harry Houdini did.
Wasn't that like a Monty Python bit where someone eats so much?
That was the like this.
That was yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
The wafer thin mint.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that any better.
Yeah,
the dude ate so much he literally exploded.
Yeah. But then he was also puking, like he would eat and then puke.
Oh yeah, it was really gross.
See, that's the thing though. Like the Baker Challenge, you would have lost if you puked. Like puking means you forfeit the challenge, or you can't complete it. So
yeah, because you don't want to eat or puke, and that's just no.
Well, then good job. You did complete it.
I did.
You mastered the challenge, and then
And then I died afterwards.
Yeah, and then your cholesterol went up 200. Whatever. It's late night. I can get away with it. I have yet to get a letter from the FCC about anything. So.
Okay.
All right, we got to talk about something else. Or we can take a break and go to music and get some drinks.
All right.
Yes.
What we are currently listening to right now, what we have been listening to, is the Vergents. And this one is Freon Presence. And real shortly, in a couple seconds, that's going to switch over to Farmer's Field by Nicole Dollinger. And she's got a really interesting sound. The narrative I like to imagine for this particular artist is that Nicole Dollinger either is or channels some sort of a baby that was stillborn but survived and was albino and grew up to be a very very functional and healthy young woman, but just never stopped being creepy.
Wait, stillborn but survived. If they survived, they were not stillborn.
Well, you can be born. You're born dead and they bring you back, and then your eyes are constantly like this weird color, and you never stop being creepy.
Haven't you ever guys heard of Frankenstein? Same principle.
Okay. I'm sure Nicole Dollinger is a wonderful woman. I'm not. It's just that's just the sound of her that she does. Actually, this one's also really short. We're literally going to talk right through this song, and we're going to go back to the Vergents. Hit up Nicole Dollinger and her album Curdled Milk on Bandcamp, though. It's really cool, really like cool narratives in it. Very like light, spooky.
Spooky?
Yeah. Well, sorry if that was too weird for y'all.
It wasn't weird. It was impossible.
Okay, we're going to be back.
With that one?
Yeah, you got to be close to it. It's got to be at least like 3 inches from your face or something. Yeah, bring it right up. So. It dangles, so you got to skew it upwards.
Well, you can mess with the knob. Oh, wait, it's broken.
Perfect here, though, right?
Hey, you can mess with that knob all you want, buddy. Welcome back to Snackcast, where we're all eating popcorn on air.
Except for me.
We've been replacing some asses. We've been confusing some co-hosts. We have a lovely new set of moon runes hooked up in the in our little back room, our little library / coffee station. A spooky written in what I think is blood on the wall. Some spooky space alien markings from our good friend DJ Jet, who was on Please Cancel Me this past Saturday. And he left us a secret message that we have yet to decipher and find the true meaning of, and I'm sure it will lead to some profound insight into how to actually be a real DJ. Step 1, don't cough on the mic. I'm looking at you, DJ Steve.
I know.
You with your lungs. I I don't know. I'm just vamping. I'm just hitting it. What are we talking about tonight, ladies?
We're talking about. Okay. So, who's heard of Theseus's ship?
I have not.
Listeners, have you heard of Theseus's ship? Send in your letters.
Why would you?
Theseus, Theus. It's Greek.
That was Theseus.
Theseus. No, it was not. That was not spelled correctly. Theseus.
Okay, Theseus.
Theseus. So this is what happened. Back in ancient Greece, there was this huge battle. People were killing each other left and right. They don't even know why they were killing each other left and right, but they were killing each other left and right on this ocean.
There were like some olives or something that had to
get I don't know exactly.
torn up.
Anyway, after they were done killing each other, they wanted to commemorate this battle. So the Greeks were like, okay, let's take Theseus's ship, drag it on land, and make it into a monument so that we can commemorate this battle where all of these people died. So they said, cool, this makes a whole lot of sense. And after a while, it's been like 100 or 200 years that the ship starts to break. So they replace different pieces of the ship. They'll say, okay, let's replace the railing, and then they had to replace the mast at some point, and the sails had to come down, and the floorboards were replaced. So after many years, hundreds, of years, there wasn't an original piece of the ship left, which means the Greeks were left with a question. After all of the pieces of the ship had been replaced, is it still Theseus's ship?
And that's why we just make statues out of bronze. We don't use the original thing as the statue.
Exactly.
We have a lot of statues of dudes.
To avoid this problem.
And they'd be skeletons.
You have a skeleton inside you all the time.
Yeah, it follows me around.
This was sort of this was pulled off by like one of my favorite stories. John dies at the end by the dude David Wong, aka Jason Pargin. And like it was a weird like surrealist drug sort of story, but like it opened up with like you kill this dude who was possessed by a demon or something with an axe. You just cut his head off with an axe. And then a week later, like the handle of the axe breaks when you're killing a robot monster. And so you get the handle replaced, and like the head of the axe chips when you are like fending off a crowd of zombie worms or something. And then like the dude shows up again with his head sewn back on. And he's just like, that's the axe that slayed me. And it's like, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, that was the worst. That was top 10 worst anecdotes of my life.
What?
Another mildly interesting Jdox story.
But the question is, when you replace all of the pieces of something, is that something gone? I mean, like we talked about a little bit on the last show, DJ Static and I, in our whole robot topic conversation, like your cells sort of like refresh every 7 years. I mean, it's a slow and gradual process, but you don't have literally the same molecules that make up your body. Because your cells die and they cycle through, like, every 7 years, like, you do not have any of the same cells and molecules that you did 7 years ago. You are literally made out of all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, you're just, like, you are a tea made out of, like, a completely different Frankenstein made out of different parts every time. So what does that mean?
That means that nothing is ever the same.
No.
What I think it means is that if you want to have any kind of identity or attribute any kind of identity to anything, it's all just kind of a conceptual thing that we do just to make life easier. But if you think about it, nothing is ever like the Earth. There's like millions of particles being, thrown into space, and sometimes an asteroid or something crashes into the Earth. So the Earth isn't even the same as it was every
once in a while we get some new particles from outer space.
So in that sense, like, there's no real reason to say that anything has any kind of identity at all. It's just there's just stuff, and the stuff it moves, and that's it.
Yeah, this shifting, churning abyss with zero permanence.
Can I go all calm theory on it?
Yeah, go. Make sure you're speaking well enough into it.
Oh.
See, if we had a couple more microphones, a couple more headphone jacks in here, it would
We're gonna have 3 mics, so we're sharing one. But okay, so calm ideas or whatever. Like the actual purpose of any of these objects that we've talked about, or like the actual what you look like, is more to communicate who you are or to communicate the idea. So like with the ship thing, it's to communicate the memorialization of something. So if it's still communicating that same thing, it doesn't necessarily matter what it's made of. I guess would be my interpretation of it.
Is it still a monument? Is it still Theseus's ship? And I think,
but for all intents and purposes, of what it is supposed to be,
it is functionally the same, but it is not the same.
No, I think.
But it communicates the exact same thing. That's what I'm saying. Like it communicates the same thing.
What he's saying is that like it's like just the meaning behind it. I mean, nobody cared about like the individual planks and the individual wooden nails of the ship. They cared that it was Theseus's ship, and it did. It wasn't Theseus's ship, but it was still there to commemorate Theseus and his ship.
The distinction here is, I guess, when do you pass the point where it's Theseus's ship with a few fixes and new parts, or it's a new ship with a few old parts from Theseus's ship?
Right, exactly. That's one of the problematic aspects of the problem, especially when you consider the second half of this anecdote, which I kind of
forgot.
No, I intentionally withheld it until now because. So imagine now.
Oh, you sly, Mr. Plot Setter-upper.
Oh, imagine that there is a collector when the first Theseus' ship is first set out to be a monument, and this collector passes and he's collecting all of the pieces of Theseus' ship, all of the old pieces as the mast wore out. We have to replace it before it deteriorates completely. So he has these kind of rundown pieces, and he's passing.
I've got a pile of old wood.
Yeah, essentially. And he passes these pieces down to his son, and his son passes it down. So 300 years go by, let's say, all of the original pieces of Theseus' ship have been replaced, and now they're left with this hunk of wood that used to be Theseus' ship, and they say, okay, let's put it back together. So they take all of the original parts, put it back together, and they create a new ship, and every piece is in exactly the same place.
This is thousands of years ago. They've invented glue and thumbtacks and silly string.
That is interesting.
So the question is that new ship now Theseus' ship?
That is interesting.
Or the new ship from the old parts?
Then is Theseus' ship defined as a sum of the parts, or is it a single object that once it's broken, it's not the same thing?
I'm gonna stick with my whole idea that like it is the message that the ship represents. So if the monument and where the monument is and what the monument means is the ship and is the purpose of the ship, then yes, the new ship is Theseus' ship. Also. Like, I know this is like a hypothetical thing, but if they had to replace the pieces, then those pieces are not possible to put back together to create a ship.
I'm just saying.
The
dude that rebuilt Theseus' ship has like a bum-ass ship that's like made out of grits and parts and pieces of worms.
Certainly wouldn't be seaworthy. But I think you're getting hung up on the monument aspect of this. You're very focused on whether it serves its purpose as a monument, when I think the question DJ Steve is posing is the physical object itself still the original ship?
Yeah, that's exactly the question, because a lot of different things can have the same functional value, and we don't want to detract from that. Like, regardless of whether or not the ship is Theseus' ship or not, after all of its original parts have been replaced, I think everyone would agree that the functional value and the commemorative value is still intact. But I think the philosophical question here is whether or not it's the same ship.
It's sort of... I mean, what any other thing of Theseus's could have been commemorated with it? Like his spear, or his sword, or his hat, or his jockstrap, or his glass eye, or his manga collection. Like the ship, like, I mean, it's a matter of like the authenticity of like what the actual thing is, and like how important the it being real thing is. And in terms of like the monument versus this rebuilt like thing, if this guy, like, I mean, in the broad hypothetical, like if this dude who rebuilt it is just saying like, no, this is the real ship, this is the real one here because it's made out of the parts, like. I imagine whoever is in charge of the monument ship is just like, yeah, well, good luck getting some tourism over wherever the hell you're at. This is like this is the official monument here.
Well, right, but it's yeah, I see what you're saying, but if I'm just regardless of what people think about it, it's like there's still an identity question.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. Practically, I'm not sure it matters, but
yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I was about to say, and it might have been really rude to a thought experiment, but I was just. My go-to for like philosophical quandaries is the counter question: who cares?
Well, I mean,
and in this case,
well, here's an interesting. Well, when we're done, I'll say.
Sorry. Well, just because one interesting thing about it is that practically it doesn't matter whether or not Theseus' ship is the same ship or not, but it does prove some insight into kind of how we conceptualize the world. What is a thing. Or I'm sorry, what makes a thing because its objects or its constitutive parts are the same, or is it some kind of conceptual thing that we impose upon the world? And I think that's one of the interesting,
Yeah,
so the idea of Theseus' ship overriding the physical object of Theseus' ship.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe I wasn't explaining it the way I wanted to earlier, because I think that we're agreeing in the same sense as that. Like, what I mean by it being a monument isn't like, oh, like this is because it's memorialized here in this way. I'm talking about the message of the ship. Like, what makes it the same ship is, and what identifies it, right? So that's what you're talking about, like the identity of the ship.
The idea of Theseus' ship.
yes, the identity is in what we see or what we perceive it to be, whether it's the real thing made of the real same parts or not. So like when Jay was talking about earlier, or Jdox, whatever. Yeah, sorry. Earlier.
He calls me Jay because she operates in single letters in terms of people's identity. So that's fine. You can call me that. If anything, DJ just Jay would be better it make more sense to my entire audience than whatever nonsense name I got now.
All right. Well, no. So Jay, you were talking about earlier. You were talking about the idea of like after 7 years we don't have any of the same cells.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I like that one.
But we are still giving the message of being the same person. Like everything you do has communicatory value. Just existing does. So existing as the same, like everything else or whatever, it's still, even though those parts aren't the same, you're still giving the same message of who you are. You still have the same identity.
That's interesting.
So that's the same thing I'm thinking with this whole ship thing.
It's like that's kind of like what I said, because we brought up that one in the context of arguing about transhumanism and uploading your consciousness, which is not an accurate statement. But
if it talks like a T, if it thinks like a T, if it sounds like a T and like behaves like a T, is that T?
A continuous consciousness,
right?
Sort of being the defining factor of what makes you you.
Yeah, interesting.
But
it's
here's
like
what? Yeah, go.
But in terms of, I mean, we talk about like your cells refreshing and stuff, so you're not like physically the same person. Like a neuron's a neuron, your neurons go out and they get replaced, and but what's important about like the brain is that the connection of the neurons and the structure and the way they interact and like the structure and function of your brain constitutes like your whole personality and your thoughts and your soul and your everything. But even that is like subject to change. 7 years, you might have like different political like views, different like personal outlook stuff, different like whole ideas about the way you perceive the world. That affects. You might have different personalities. So it's like, is that the same person at all? If like we're talking about aside from the physical like replacement stuff, the real meaning is in like the sort of like. I had the word
of perception, the perception that you're giving off.
Yeah, but if even the identity and the perception has changed, is that person functionally dead?
Yeah, I think there's a past you. Like every as you go forward in life, there's always a past you. There's this version of you that you've left behind.
And thank God, because I was the worst kind of person in middle school. Like I'm glad that dude is dead.
Everybody was terrible in middle school.
No, I just wore lots of fedoras and ties. I wasn't terrible. I was just awful. In dress code.
You got to give us some pictures of that.
No, I'm okay.
We got Steve.
Yeah, I'm really upset that you guys were all crappy in high school and middle school because I was the bum.
Oh, Mr. Perfect over here.
I wasn't crappy.
Oh, really?
Never got out of his edgy phase.
Oh boy.
No.
Well,
still in it.
Here's a hypothetical that I threw at you last time, which we kind of like didn't talk about.
I've still got the bruise. Good joke.
Which is, and this is very much like in the realm of science fiction.
Yeah.
But if your brain were to be removed from your body and hooked up to a bunch of transmitters and receivers, like placed in your head in the way that functionally when they were all turned on, it was as if nothing had changed, except now your brain is way over there in a jar or a magic vat of
brain
computer.
in a vat.
Yeah, basically.
And it's streaming on Twitch.
But where are you? Are you in the vat or are you walking around in the room?
Yeah, well, and your body like becomes an avatar then of like your brain that's in another spot.
Yeah, I mean that's one
like
of these.
In the hot James Cameron Avatar.
No.
Yeah, in philosophy, that's a pretty standard thought experiment, like the brain in a vat. Like you take your brain, put it in a vat, and your world is being manipulated by these scientists or something. But yeah, it's an interesting question because where you are, I guess, would depend on where your perceptual experience is kind of.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing.
So, in that sense, you wouldn't be anywhere in the physical world. You'd be in the virtual world created by whatever mechanism is prodding your brain.
Well, but it's not a virtual world. This hypothetical is that somehow magically we're able to hook up the brain to a bunch of transmitters and receivers so that when it's placed in the vat and the receivers are placed in your body, you operate your body as if nothing has changed, but now your brain is in a vat.
You have a really long brain
and you got some awesome Wi-Fi
signal
on the other
side of the room.
I understand. So it's like, I misunderstood the example. That is really interesting.
Because where are you? And it depends on how you define you. Is it the center of your perception, in which case then you are walking around the room. But if you define what makes you you, as what Jdox was saying earlier, as the structure of the brain that produces consciousness, then you are in the vat.
I think you would have to be in the vat, though, because for this reason, let's say we were all chilling by a cliff, and we all had these brain receivers in our skulls that would pick up what's going on from our brain, and we all said, you know what, guys, like it would be really fun to just jump off these cliffs right now. And we all jump off these cliffs, and like the shock from the fall just kills our bodies. Our brains would presumably still be alive. in some capacity. It would be really crappy because, we'd be blind and deaf and dumb and just all alone in the
Literally
universe.
No senses.
No senses, but we'd still be alive in some capacity. It would be like being it would be like having sleep paralysis.
Not just alive, we'd be conscious.
Yeah, we'd be conscious. It's like we'd be having sleep paralysis or something like that. Really scary stuff.
It's a great get that great upbeat conversation you can only get on the Slouch.
Well, but okay, so I'm gonna stick to it just because I think it's interesting. The communicative value of your body to everyone else is that that's you. They don't know, and you probably don't know that your brain is in a vat. So to everyone else, you is your body, but to you is the vat. So it's who you want to perceive you as, from which perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's a very complicated question because we very much identify ourselves as a aggregate of our sensory inputs, and what are we without those?
We also our sense of self is not just based on ourselves, but also based on the thoughts of those around us. Like your parents see you in one way, your friends see you in another way, your teachers see you in another way, you see yourself in another way. Which one of those is the reality of you?
And you get that whole different
that you can't see about yourself.
Yes, but this hypothetical specifically dealing with where are you located in space at any given point?
Right, but maybe that's not the right question to ask at first.
Maybe it can't be answered.
Well, it probably can't be answered. But
most of
at the same time, if there's so many different views, so many different people's perception of what's going on, and then you have these aggregate sort of forms of who am I? Am I just the sum of these perceptual experiences that I'm having, or am I physically located somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is no really one unified self because everybody perceives other people in different ways, and who's to say that your own perception of yourself is the correct one? I mean, a lot of the time, I think that's the default setting because, well, I'm the one who has access to my own thoughts, and I'm really the only one who can know what I'm feeling ever. So people favor themselves in saying my perception of myself is kind of the paramount one, but there's other, sometimes you need to talk to someone else to really figure out what's going on with you. So it's, maybe there is no
real calm theory right there.
Maybe there is no
real
perception. Maybe there is no self. It's just people's interpretation of something that doesn't really exist.
That's
wow.
real.
I guess the question
that is real calm theory. That is a true, all true statement.
We're getting at where is your consciousness located?
Static, closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. That's an actually really interesting question, but it depends on your metaphysical beliefs.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, what you consider consciousness?
I mean, your perceptions and the input and
your
output.
Perceptions.
Yeah.
So if it's your perceptions, then
I would say your consciousness is defined as the continuous self-awareness. So where would that be located in this hypothetical?
But how much do you trust your self-awareness to know everything about yourself? Another calm theory, Joe Harry window. No, literally, there's have you ever heard about this, the Joe Harry window?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
if you had one class with Grace Follow, you would know the Joe Harry window.
So imagine a square broken up into 4 parts. Each one of the parts has a different value. So one piece is called the open square, and it's what you know about yourself and what others can also know about you. The next part is the blind spot, where something that you don't know about yourself but that others see. So maybe you don't know that you're really exhausted. You can't really just tell that you're exhausted that day, but everybody else can see it in you.
You can't smell yourself.
And then the next one would be what's the next one? The hidden one, which is stuff that you know about yourself but that you don't share with others or that you make invisible to others. And then the last one is the unknown, things that you don't know about yourself and that other people don't know about you. So how well do you handle yourself canoeing in Whitewater Rapids? If you've never done it, you don't know how you would react in that situation. Other people can't know that either. So your version of consciousness and your version of self is based off of your open window and your hidden window, because those are the things that you know about you and that you don't share with others or you do share with others. So there are 2 whole other windows of things that you don't know that maybe other people do know, or things that you don't share with others, or things that you don't even have a chance to know yet because you haven't been in a particular situation to have that form of consciousness available to you. So that's what I mean by you can't define this as your thoughts necessarily all the time, because you don't always have. You're going to treat yourself more favorably in the end of what you think you are, but that might not be exactly what you are.
You are creating a group defined consciousness.
Sure.
When I'm saying consciousness is an individual experience, you are experiencing being you.
But you don't notice yourself changing.
Yeah, you do.
At least not in a way that it doesn't feel like you don't feel like the you that you died from a couple
minutes ago.
Well, I mean that's
time ago talking yeah.
Technically, the you of 2 minutes ago did not die. You've changed from the you of 2 minutes ago. If you reflect on it, you might notice that. But
that older version doesn't exist.
It's a singular continuous experience of being you. And you're saying without other people, the singular individual experience has no meaning.
I'm not saying it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have the same meaning. It doesn't have the full meaning.
Right, but aren't we talking about two different things right now?
Yeah,
it seems like DJ T over here is talking about what I don't know. I was hit.
I don't. Definition of.
I don't. So sort of like definition of like your self-identity and sort of how we functionally use consciousness to exist in the world. But there's a more deeper philosophical question that DJ Static is trying to get at,
which is the experience of being conscious.
Yeah. So like, where is consciousness? What exactly is it? Just the fact that I'm sitting here and I'm hearing myself.
Like you probably know this hypothetical, the philosophical zombie. People who, which is kind of goes back to you can only trust your own, I guess, perceptions.
Right.
Which is that you're self-aware, but what if no one else is? What if everybody just moves, walks, and talks as if they're self-aware?
We are talking about things that overlap.
But
like we are talking about things that overlap. Like that's the whole point of why I brought it up.
But you're missing kind of what I'm getting at, and I think I shouldn't have interrupted you because I think you were about to get to it, Steve.
Right. So what? Yeah. Right. I did. What was I getting to it? So what you were saying is that the mind. And Descartes actually writes about this in his one of his meditations. I think therefore I am. But if you go and you look at people, walking on the street and they're in all these black clothes and hats, they could be automatons for all you know. So there's no way for us to certify or
they're part of the matrix.
Exactly. Like I don't know that any of the other DJs in the studio with me right now actually have minds. They behave just like they have minds.
Just a simulation of sentience.
Right. So, and likewise, everyone else around me can't be sure that I have sentience.
So you just have to cleanse the world of the non-sentient.
No.
Don't do that.
Right.
No,
because as a philosophical quandary, you don't know who is like a conscious, who's a real person, who's a real boy.
Philosophy was very much, and this I do know because I studied it a little bit way back when.
And correct
me if I get it wrong, but it was basically you can trust no one else's perception but your own, because that is the only thing you can truly validate. The fact that you are self-aware is something only you can validate.
There's a lot of cognitive biases and like mental cognitive gaps in your memory, in your perception, in your everything that say that you, in a lot of ways, can't even trust your own perception to give you a realistic
and that's something else
outlook.
He talks about. But the fact that you perceive yourself as self-aware, that is what I'm defining as consciousness. Like your self-awareness. Where does that reside in this hypothetical?
So we were talking about with the robots last week. When if you want to upload your brain into a robot, right? Like it's a perfect synthetic brain that perfectly replicates yours. It's exactly the same down to the neuron. It's 100% your brain.
So it's like a positronic brain.
If we want to talk about like what makes a person is in the structure of their neurons and
that's
like
not what I'm saying, but okay.
No. Like as we were saying, like the person isn't in a neuron. It's in like the structure of them and in the shape of your brain and the way that things connect. Everything about that structure and that shaping and that connection is like in the robot. So this is all to establish that the robot is 100% exactly the same brain. But the idea is you go to sleep with one consciousness and you wake up with two of these brains working at the same time. Your original organic one and your exactly identical robot brain. Where is the consciousness? And it's like the easiest to imagine that you wake up, that you go to sleep in the hospital operating table or whatever as an organic person, and you wake up as the same organic person.
Yes.
But the robot wakes up having gone to sleep as the organic person, and it's this idea of like the branching consciousnesses, and that it's hard to imagine that like, and you don't have like telepathy or something. You're not like linked where you're seeing through both of your eyes at the same time. It's not like that. I mean, it's not like the consciousness like connects the you and your robot in the same way, but that there's two, and that it's sort of like Schrodinger's consciousness, where you don't know which one you would wake up as.
Except,
and the robot, from the robot's perspective, it wakes up as the robot. It was just you, normal, organic, human you, wakes up as the robot, and then human you wakes up as human you, and you're like, oh, it's still me.
Except it's really not, because the robot wakes up with your memories, but you still wake up as you.
But you can't. But like Descartes stuff, we can't prove that the robot is or isn't just as conscious and sentient.
You are the only thing that you know is sentient.
But the robot's the only thing that knows that the robot is sentient. The robot is in that same boat.
If you create
I see what you're saying.
If you create a copy of your brain, it's a simulation of the original process.
So my brain is a simulation of whatever thoughts and whatever's I'm having in my brain.
Your brain is not a carbon copy of another brain.
My brain is the carbon copy of the brain it was 7 years ago when it was copied through carbon in the cells, in the new cells.
Stop, you're stretching.
I mean, I think it's interesting to think from the perspective of the robot, though, because
it's my favorite perspective.
The robot is in the unique position of being able to kind of verify through his own memory that the organic brain he's now looking at was conscious. So he knows that there's another point of consciousness in the universe because it used to be him. But now he's a robot. So if he is sentient, the robot is sentient, then he could say, hey, there's two sources of consciousness in the universe. It's not just me.
Right, but Jdox's question is, when you go to sleep on that table, can you wake up as the robot?
No.
See?
I don't know. I think
you cannot.
I wouldn't say you can't. I don't know that you can or that you will or what, but it's hard to say.
I'll say the same thing I said before. You will always wake up as you. The robot wakes up as you. You do not wake up as the robot.
And the robot knows that it worked, that you can split that. The robot knows that you can split that consciousness. The human you that wakes up says, well, I'm still the human me. I don't know. Is the robot real? Like, and you definitely have a certain bias to say that the robot's probably not real. So if you say like, well, it didn't work, I'm still me in this body, you would turn that robot off. The robot then has the existential crisis that you're coming at it to kill it. Yeah. So you can't do that. So what we talked about, Static and I last week, was that my solution to this, and it's debatable if this is a good solution, is that if it gets to the point where I'm going to upload my brain into a robot,
it's not a solution.
Where it gets to the point where I'm going to upload my brain into the robot, when I go to sleep as a human, only the robot wakes up.
But how is that a solution?
Basically, he kills himself. He kills the original.
Okay, this is under the scenario that I'm old and dying in my frail human body, destined for the grave. So I haven't a lot to lose. I'm not doing this right now when I'm still like young and in my prime.
That's fine, but you're making a copy of yourself. You're not moving the original.
Well, you don't know. If the copy can operate in the exact same way as the original.
We're talking about technology.
I'm the biological copy of my parents. That doesn't make me like not me. And that robot then gets formed. The robot doesn't just stick with the personality that was me. The robot grows and learns and is a real person in the same way that I am in every way.
Right, Jay, are you talking about, so in this theory, if this was a split and the robot you and the quote unquote you continues on, like at that point you have like a separation of your consciousness, because that's not, if you were to come back to that in a year, you won't have lived the same experiences or the same understanding.
Then the robot is a different person for me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So at the point of waking up, I think that they're still the same. But then like once you wake up,
immediately the experiences are different and you diverge. But
I agree. But the point in contention that has always been in contention between us is, can you wake up as the robot? And I am saying fundamentally, you cannot wake up as the robot.
Well,
because
what do you mean
you as you define yourself, you as you perceive yourself, you are a continuous experience. You cannot move that into something else that would interrupt the continuity.
It's sort of
would be
like
death.
It's sort of not like so I'm thinking about it now, and you guys are all very much right. You have a really good point. Because it isn't you. It's like you're right. It's very much fundamentally not. But like imagine if, but like when I'm thinking about it now, like, and this is from sort of like a reproductive standpoint almost. Like imagine if you like died when you reproduced. Like I mean, died in childbirth, male or female, like regardless.
Yeah.
If like, I mean, you wouldn't like go to sleep and wake up like as your kid, because that kid would be different.
Exactly.
Even if the kid like was born with all of your memories or something. No, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I guess that is a sort of like, you put in like a sort of reproductive paradigm. If I want to copy like my values and my ideals and my drive and my memories and my everything that I have that makes up me, and I want to copy that into like an offspring that is a robot that is very much like a copy of me, but then builds on that through further experiences as a robot, then that's sort of just cloning yourself or something.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But it's just
which makes sense to be you until after the point of cloning.
It's like I know where this conversation is going, because it's like it's really hard to imagine like this soul hop, where my soul hops from from goo and organs to circuitry.
You do have a point in that the robot, upon waking up, will perceive itself as having been you. However,
that's the best I can hope for. Honestly.
However, you as you exist now will never wake up in the robot. And I'm not probably wording this very well, because I can't really explain it beyond that, and maybe someone else can. But you are fundamentally rooted in the continuity of your current existence.
Which is why I'm saving my robot for the deathbed.
But you're making a copy of yourself. It's not like I'm going to continue living. You're creating a copy of yourself.
I kind of just don't want to see myself die. If I was in that position, I would.
Well,
hey,
what I think.
Let me have my supervillain backstory, okay?
I don't know. What I think Static is saying is that, if regardless of whether or not you're able to successfully clone yourself into some kind of robot form, like assuming you do that, you're still a biological entity, which means that you are still continuous within your own biological body with your biological brain, which is going to die. So you will still experience death like any other person. So if I were to give myself a robot, body, a robot brain, it doesn't matter for me because I'm still going to die. And then the robot would wake up with all of my memories and say, like, that would, I guess, be me as well. That would also be me, but it wouldn't be the same me.
It would be functionally the same.
It would be functionally the same, but not the same because it is now having a different experience than what I am having, and that continuity is broken.
I think what I've been on is like a really interesting crossroads between an existential crisis about death and the reproductive drive, which is it's a funky thing. So I mean. So my plan is, no matter what, like, I kind of don't want to like I'm definitely, when I'm an old man and transhumanism, like, upload your brain into a robot becomes a thing, which I'm certainly positive it will, because otherwise I don't know.
I don't think that'll happen in our lifetimes.
All right, I'm basing this off of this. That's what I'm sort of banking on. But when that time comes where like I'm this like cartoon, I'm like Emperor Palpatine, like turning into a skeleton in like a hospital somewhere, I'm just like, bring the robot in. Bring it in. It's time. We have to do it. Do it. Strike them dead with all of your hatred. Do it.
Okay.
And sorry, I love doing Emperor Palpatine. But I'm then if it gets to that point that I want to just be like, I don't want to look at myself waking up as the robot.
What?
Does that make sense? Because then I like really have to like.
So you would.
Then I have to, in a lot of ways, I have to really give up the ghost. Yeah.
You could have a really interesting conversation with yourself then, though.
Oh no, but then I have to be like, then I have to be like,
I'd love to play chess against myself.
Oh god,
like think about it. It's like if I play chess against myself now, I know what my own moves are going to be. But this would be a case where I don't know what my own moves are going to be unless I did.
If I tried to play chess against myself as a robot me, that would turn into like a really physical altercation real quick, and the robot me could kick that crap out of old man me.
Something that just occurred to me as something that might be more philosophically, I guess, a very turning point in terms of philosophy, if this ever does happen, where the human consciousness has been quantified. It can be copied, it can be uploaded here and there, it can be digitized.
Yeah.
What would that mean for our understanding of what it is to be human, what it is to be self-aware?
Hey, Digimon.
Like that, I think that will be a very interesting, if this ever does happen, that would be a very interesting philosophical moment for humanity.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm looking forward to it. Transhumanism,
I don't think
2015.
it's going to happen during our lifetime.
Make them robot brains. Get that up in you. It has to. It's gonna.
There's no such thing as
quantum immortality. I'm conscious now. I'll be conscious forever because I will have my brain in a robot. See, the me that is me right now is not the
just accepts death like the rest of us.
The me that you're looking at right now is not the me that is dying in the hospital bed. This is the me right now that wakes up as the robot and says, "Dope, it worked."
No, that's not how it works.
I mean,
that's how it is. No.
If we're
Time
able,
is a flat circle. It's quantum immortality, dude. I'm alive now. I'm gonna live forever. That's quantum immortality.
If you're able to do that, I think one of the interests to do that being if you're able to upload your consciousness and digitize it and switch it between things. What I would be really upset with is what if my processor breaks? Holy shit, that would be bad. I mean, like,
well,
I think you don't have any.
Here's something interesting though about data that a lot of people don't understand. When you move a file. Like, let's just pretend that you can fit all of your mind into one file. When you move a file around on your computer, like when you move something from My Documents to like the Downloads folder, or vice versa,
right?
You're not moving it. What you're doing is you're creating a copy in the new location and deleting the old file. Functionally, it's the same data, but it occupies a different location in the computer's memory.
Hit that Theseus chip again.
Think about that for a moment, and what that like if you could upload your consciousness to something and then move it from that thing to something else, did you just kill whatever you moved it from?
Right. Yeah, actually, that's true. You don't really know.
No, and that, I would say, is like Schrodinger's consciousness right there, because that's a digital experience going to another digital experience.
Yeah, so there would be no continuity. It was like, I guess functionally it would be the same thing, but you're right. There would be an ending of a consciousness and like a reconstitution of the same one in a different place every time you copied or moved something.
Which is also why if teleporters ever become a thing, I am never going to use one ever.
Yeah,
because that is biological version of that.
Dude, that was
it's like Star Trek type
the
stuff.
Scotty thing because it breaks apart all of your molecules and then
it reassembles them in a new location.
But it reassembles you out of no. It reads the structure of and the placement of all of your molecules, and then dissolves you, and then somewhere else, it's not the same molecules. They have like a jar full of carbon and hydrogen and nitrogen and the elements that make up the person, and then it 3D prints you super quick. It 3D prints a different you.
Yeah.
That is totally the same. And the thing is, like, does our consciousness make that jump? Who knows?
That's the thing, though. In Star Trek, for instance, there's a couple of episodes where there's problems with the transporter device, and there's and they say that they do have consciousness while they're being transported, and it's this really weird, like, energy zone, but they feel themselves being transported. So again, this is science fiction. We don't know if this would actually be the case, whether you could feel being transported or not, but they seem to suggest that no, this is the same, like, there's this same kind of soul-like entity or concept that is moving. Whereas, so it's like something is being moved, whereas the body is being assembled and disassembled.
Thanks for giving me that idea, DJ Steve. Now my whole argument for being Robot Man is going to be based on Star Trek lore.
Something duality. I forget what it's called, the term for that, where the mind and the body are separate entities.
Yeah, so it's just called dualism.
Dualism, okay.
In philosophy, just the idea that the mind is some sort of separate substance or entity, and then body or matter, physical brute stuff is also a Cartesian.
It is interesting that we bring up teleporting, because there was back in my middle school weeaboo years, there was an anime and manga I read and watched called Gantz. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I've heard of Gantz.
It was super mature and like gory and awful and terrible things happened to good people. Reboot. But except it was the original.
Was it the people that had like crazy black cat suits with like little white dots on? Yeah.
And but one of the things was right from the beginning, there was this machine that would basically, right at the moment of someone's death, it would basically like scan their body and reconstitute them like fully alive. But now they had like a bomb implanted in their head, and they had to do stuff for these people. But
why?
Because plot. But there was a point in the story where, well, 2 times in the story actually, where someone was functionally cloned because one of the people who was reconstituted, their original didn't actually die and was going about their daily life.
Oh no, 2U syndrome.
And then later in the story, there was another one where somebody had an unrequited romantic feelings for one of the characters and created a copy of him just for her, which was really, really creepy in kind of a philosophical way. But
yeah,
that's another like example of that sort of hypothetical.
Literally, and I don't know how much I'm sort of taking a different direction from Gantz. One of my favorite superpowers that I always imagined I would have if I had a superpower would be like to duplicate yourself, to make multiple use, and then multiple man style. And it might be a little bit because the X-Man Multiple Man was named Jamie, which is what my people call me. But my family. But like you would make a whole bunch of different ones of yourselves, and then you'd be like, okay, everybody, let's figure out what we're going to be doing, how to spend our time better now that we have a stupid amount of man hours at our access. And we're like, okay, so y'all like go learn something, y'all go work some jobs and earn some muns.
Would you be a hive mind, or would each copy have its own individual personality?
See, and so I belabor this topic all the time because I want this superpower like crazy. And the idea is once you can remerge, and once you remerge, then that like shares everything. So like every day,
you would not be a hive mind.
Every day,
it's like Hermione. When she used that little time turner, she like went and learned 2 different subjects and came back knowing both of them.
Yeah.
Knowing both of them. My words today, but being the same person, so her consciousness was split.
Exactly. That's the thing is I split into 2 different like me's, and I'm like, okay, you go like you go learn this thing and you go learn that thing, and then we'll have gotten 2 days worth of education. And then come back at the end of the day, and this could be like 20 of me. We all come back at the end of the day, refuse. And then I literally go insane from that brain struggle. But then it's like, oh wow, I learned so much today. It's crazy, and I'm exhausted, and I'm going to sleep immediately. Wake up the next day, split into 10 more people, go off, do 10 things, come back with 10 times the experience of a single day.
See, that would be
live
really
1,000
epic.
years.
It would be epic because you could literally do everything that you could ever want to do.
You could.
The one thing I will say about Harry Potter, though, just to get the lore straight, it's like only one was not conscious. So she'd go back in time, but the version of Hermione that was going back in time was still conscious of the things she already did. So she just could do different things there. So
Hermione didn't like split and then come back together. She like went and like looped around.
And then looped back and then had to hide
Hermione
from her other
followed
self
a single continuity. So did she age like at twice the rate because she
her
had
other
twice
self
the time?
That always bugs me about time travel.
Right, but her other self, there's two of her, but it's different from how Jay is talking about because
you're talking about parallel processing. Hermione was like sequential processing.
Yeah, so there were two of her, but her one mind was like the future her. So she already had done the thing she had done.
So she because she had lived twice a day every day to go to like all these classes. So over the course of this academic year, she lived 2 academic years. And if she kept doing that stuff, she ages at twice the rate. And what was I going towards with this?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my gosh, that is totally a plot hole.
And you know what was a big plot hole? Yeah, how old is Hermione?
Hermione would be 1 year older than Ron and Harry.
Because she can't just stop using that time turner after the 3rd book. She kept doing that. She probably got 12 degrees from Hogwarts over the course of like one stint at it. And is McGonagall allowed to do that? Like give her that kind of stuff? That is a really unfair academic advantage in a lot of ways. Yeah, I'm sure it was. But like
that's something that always bugs me about time travel.
You know what bugged me about that entire scene before you get into that is that Hermione's just like, hey, Harry, I have this time turner. We have to go solve things. And Ron's over there with his bus-ass leg, and he's just like, I can't do anything. I can't say anything. And she's like, sorry, Ron, we're going to be boop, 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 boop. And then, like, and then they go do the whole thing, and then they go do the whole thing, and then they come back. They bust right into the hospital room where Ron is immediately after they've done the time turner thing. So from Ron's perspective, they just vanished and then bust through the door. And he was just like, how did you do that? You were just there, and Harry was there. And they give him this line where they're just like, that's crazy, Ron. Like, you can't be in 2 places at once. What are you talking about? Did they ever explain to Ron what the time turner was, or did they just gaslight him? Did they just convince Ron that he was going crazy?
I mean, think about it. In Harry Potter, there's totally like apparition. You can basically instantly teleport places. They probably just like, yeah, we totally apparated then when we weren't supposed to, and did all that other kind of stuff. Just like totally spun the line.
There's a lot of like difficult ideas in Harry Potter. So you were
going to say that's what I don't like about something irritating that isn't addressed a lot by time travel. Is like, oh, let's go on a time travel adventure and then return to like spend days doing time travel stuff or weeks or months or years, and then we'll come back to the exact moment we left, and it's like nobody's going to notice that you're older now.
All right, shout out to DJ T, it's now her birthday.
Hey!
We're done. All right, thank you. I'm about to cut the sound.
Oh yeah, this is on the opposite side of the soundboard.
Hey, I like that we can let them think that I know what's going on.
Shall we sing happy birthday?
No.
That's really okay.
I'm not going to sing it.
Okay.
I am not singing.
That was some good that was some good hot existential crisis talk we had. Y'all want to wrap it up for tonight?
I don't care.
Yeah,
sure, let's do it.
Because I'm beat and I'm sweaty.
And my balls are itchy. I was quoting DJ J.
Can you say that?
Hey, I say that kind of stuff off the air. Come on. You've been listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR, unless you turned this off a long time ago, which I think y'all should have. But this has been the Slouch. This is Jdox here hosting with.
Oh, Static, DJ Static,
and my special guest this week,
DJ Steve.
T.
This has been good. We've had fun. All right.
Get out of here.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to send anything, and if you want to talk to us, if you want to raise some points, if you have some moral or philosophical quandaries that you want to post to the group, you can write some of that stuff in at Juniata College, Box 726, also, at 1700 Moore Street, 16652. You can address that to the Slouch. You can address that to Jdox or Static or whoever you want. If you want us to talk about it on this show, thank you for listening. Go to bed.
Also, first episode that Jdox hasn't sent us careening down a political tangent.
Boy, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm glad because at least we turned it into an episode about existential dread as opposed to like
you're really
a political
the only one
argument.
Feeling the existential dread.
Well, yeah, because you guys
are so desperate to be a robot.
Because you guys are just poking holes in my transhumanist fantasies. Thank you everybody for listening. We will see you next week.